The deep space battleship Iron Vow floated through the dark starfield like a silent beast. Its metal skin carried the scars of old wars, but inside, something much darker was happening, something no one on the ship wanted to talk about out loud. In the center of the ship, inside the main judgment hall, a young woman named Alara stood alone. Bright white lights shined down on her, making her look smaller than she really was. She kept her hands tight together, trying to stay calm, but everyone could see the fear in her eyes. Around her, crew members whispered in shock, confusion, and fear. No one understood how a simple act could lead to such a cruel punishment. At the high podium stood Captain Voss, a man feared by every soul on the ship. His cold eyes stared at Alara like she was an insect. His voice echoed across the hall, sharp like a knife. "Alara Arden," he said slowly, "you have committed an offense against the authority of this ship. You refused the captain's order. You rejected your superior." He paused for effect, letting everyone feel the tension. "And for this, you will be cast into the void." A wave of gasps spread through the hall. Someone dropped a tool. Another person covered their mouth. The void was not a prison. It was not exile. It was death. Slow, empty, terrifying death. Alara felt her knees weaken, but she still stood tall. She tried to speak, her voice shaking. "Captain, I did nothing wrong. I only said no. That is not a crime." Captain Voss leaned forward. "On this ship, Alara, my word is law." At the back of the hall, a young pilot watched the scene with clenched fists. Lieutenant Kale Wren, one of the best pilots on the Iron Vow, felt anger rise inside him like a storm. Kale wasn't loud. He wasn't the type to challenge orders. But today, something inside him cracked. He knew Alara. She was kind, hardworking, and brave. She did not deserve this. And everyone in the room knew that the captain's so-called order wasn't professional. It was personal. And rejecting him had cost her everything. Two guards stepped forward, taking Alara by the arms. "Prepare the void chamber," the captain ordered. Kale's heart dropped. No, not like this. He could not watch her die. The judgment hall doors opened, and Alara was dragged out. Her eyes met Kale's for a brief moment. She didn't speak, but the fear in her gaze was clear. It was a silent cry for help. And Kale felt something inside him break. He stepped into the hall's aisle, but another pilot grabbed his arm. "Kale, stop," the man whispered. "You can't interfere. The captain will kill you too." Kale didn't answer. He only stared at the floor. His mind was racing. His heartbeat grew louder and louder in his ears. He had always obeyed rules. He had always done what he was told. But this wasn't duty. This was evil. As the hall emptied, Kale stayed behind, breathing hard, trying to think. He imagined Alara inside the void chamber, the metal doors opening, the endless emptiness swallowing her whole. His fists tightened until his knuckles turned white. He whispered under his breath, "I won't let this happen." Outside the hall, Alara was pushed through long metallic corridors toward the lower decks. The ship's lights flickered, and the hum of the engines filled the halls like a heartbeat. Each step took her closer to death. Kale walked fast now, his steps echoing sharply. His voice was low but firm as he spoke to himself. "There has to be a way. There must be a way." He reached a locked control panel, the one that connected to the void chamber's safety system. Every pilot knew about it, but no one had ever touched it without permission. Kale hesitated for only a moment before pulling out his security card. "This is madness," he whispered. "But letting her die is worse." He slid the card. The panel blinked red. "Access denied." Kale cursed under his breath. But then he remembered his late mentor had once shown him an emergency override code. The kind only top pilots knew, meant for engine failures or escape pods. Not for saving someone from execution. But rules no longer mattered. His fingers shook as he typed the code. Beep, beep, beep. The screen flashed. Green. Override ACCTT. Cale's breath caught. He had just crossed the line. There was no turning back. Somewhere deep below, the void chamber alarms began to beep in confusion. Elara heard the alarms echo through the corridors. The guards frowned, unsure. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. Cale whispered, "Hold on, Elara, I'm coming." And with that, he ran, knowing well that he had just started a mutiny. The corridors of the Iron Vow trembled with warning alarms. But no one understood what was happening yet. Only one person knew the truth, Cale, and he was already running through the narrow metal passageways, his boots hitting the floor with hard, fast thuds. His heart was racing, but his mind was sharper than ever. Cale had crossed a line that no one came back from. He had activated the override on the void chamber, something only a fool or a desperate man would do. And Cale knew exactly which one he was. Above him, through the long rows of pipes and glowing wires, he could hear the captain's voice echoing through the ship's speakers. "All units, report at once. Someone has interfered with the void chamber systems. Find the cause. Secure all lower decks." Cale didn't stop running. He knew the captain would soon discover who caused the disruption. Only pilots with high-level access codes could trigger an override. And Cale was one of the few, but none of that mattered now. All Cale could think about was Elara, scared, alone, walking toward a fate she didn't deserve. He turned a sharp corner and almost collided with two engineers rushing the opposite way. "Lieutenant Wren," one of them called out. "Did you hear? Something's wrong with the void launch. The entire system crashed." Cale forced a calm expression, even though his chest burned with fear. "I'll check the system from the next panel," he said. "Keep moving." The engineers nodded and hurried past him. As soon as they were gone, Cale broke into a sprint again. Elara's marched toward the void meanwhile. On the lower decks, Elara's steps were slow and shaky. The guards on either side held her arms tightly, but they looked uneasy. The warning lights painted the hallway in red flashes. "Why are the alarms going off?" one of the guards asked. "Probably a sensor glitch," the other replied. But even he didn't believe it. Elara kept her eyes forward. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. But in her heart, she prayed for a miracle. She didn't know if anyone would save her. She didn't even know if anyone cared. But then, in the distance, she heard footsteps. Fast footsteps. Familiar footsteps. Her heart jumped. Cale finds the first obstacle. Cale reached the secondary control room, a small, dusty space filled with old monitors and half-broken machines. This place wasn't used often, but it was connected to the emergency systems. If he could delay the chamber long enough, he might buy time to reach Elara. He slammed his hands onto the panel and typed another override. "Code. System locked. Requires authorization level 2." Cale's eyes narrowed. He didn't have level 2 access. Only officers did. But he knew someone who did. He opened the comm line. "Officer Taran, this is Cale. I need your help." A moment later, a tired voice responded. "Cale? Now is not the time. The entire ship is in chaos." "It's the void chamber," Cale said quietly. "I need level 2 access. I can't explain yet, but please trust me." There was a long silence. Taran had always been fair. She knew Cale wasn't reckless. If he was doing something this extreme, something was seriously wrong. "Sending you temporary access," she finally replied. The panel blinked green. Cale exhaled in relief and typed again. "Void chamber. Lockdown extended. 6 minutes. 6 minutes." That was all he had bought. 6 minutes to reach Elara. 6 minutes until the captain realized what he had done. 6 minutes before the ship came down on him. He ran again. The captain starts to suspect up on the command deck. Captain Voss leaned forward, studying the flashing screens. Void chamber systems overridden, the officer reported. Twice. By who? Voss demanded. Only pilots and officers have the access to. Show me the access logs. Voss snapped. When Kale's name appeared on the screen, the captain's eyes filled with cold fury. So, he whispered, the boy thinks he can challenge me. He grabbed the comm unit. All security teams, Voss growled. Capture Lieutenant Kale Wren on site. Authorization, lethal force if necessary. Kale. Reaches the guards. Kale turned another corner and finally saw them, 2 guards dragging Ilara toward the heavy metal doors of the void chamber. His chest tightened. Ilara, he shouted. The guards spun around. One of them reached for his weapon. Kale didn't slow down. He tackled the guard with full force, sending both crashing into the wall. The second guard stepped forward, but Kale rose quickly and slammed his fist into him before he could react. Both guards hit the floor. Groaning, Ilara stared in shock. Kale, you came. He grabbed her hand, breathing hard. I'm not letting them kill you. She felt warmth rush to her chest. They'll hunt you too. They already are, Kale said, pulling her behind him. Come on. We're out of time. And together they ran toward danger, toward rebellion, toward a fate neither of them could turn back from. The lower deck of the Iron Vow vibrated with running footsteps, blaring alarms, and the deep hum of the engines. The red emergency lights flashed across the metal walls, making the whole place feel like a beating heart fast wild and ready to burst. Kale held Ilara's hand tightly as they ran through the long corridor. His breathing was heavy, but his grip was strong, refusing to let her fall behind. Kale, why are you risking your life for me? Ilara asked, her voice trembling as she ran. Because what they're doing to you is wrong, he said without looking back. I won't stand by and watch them destroy you. His words hit her like a warm wave. For a moment, the fear in her heart softened. In a ship full of cruelty and fear, someone finally stood for her. But their moment didn't last. Behind them, the sound of boots thundered through the corridor. There! Stop them! Kale glanced back. 4 security officers were chasing them, weapons drawn, faces filled with anger and confusion. Faster! He shouted. Ilara pushed herself harder, though her legs shook with exhaustion. She wasn't trained for running through dangerous ship corridors. She wasn't a soldier. But she had Kale, and that gave her strength. She didn't know she had. They reached a branching hallway. Kale turned sharply left. The officers fired. Bright blue stun shots hit the walls, sending sparks flying. Ilara shrieked as a shot passed inches from her shoulder. Kale paused only long enough to step between her and the incoming fire, shielding her with his own body. Kale! She cried. I'm fine. Keep going. Entering the maintenance tunnels, Kale spotted a narrow maintenance hatch on the wall. These tunnels were usually used by engineers, not meant for normal travel. They were cramped, dark, and filled with pipes and cables, perfect for hiding. He grabbed the release lever and yanked it down. The hatch opened with a loud metallic groan. In here, he said. Ilara looked into the dark opening. Kale, it's too small. It's our only chance. Go, she crawled inside. Kale followed, pulling the hatch closed behind them just as the officers reached the hallway. Inside the maintenance tunnel, it was pitch black except for the faint red lights running along the ceiling. The air smelled like metal and grease. The space was so tight they had to move on their hands and knees. Ilara whispered, Do you know where this goes? Sort of, Kale said. These tunnels connect to the central engineering line. If we reach the hangar, we can escape. She stopped crawling for a moment, staring at him in the dim light. You're planning to leave the ship? Kale nodded. If we stay here, the captain will kill us both. The realization hit her like a shock. He wasn't just saving her from the void. He was risking everything. His career, his loyalty, his life, for her. Voices from outside as they crawled deeper. They heard muffled voices and heavy footsteps echoing through the metal around them. Search everywhere. They couldn't have gone far. Check the tunnels. They're desperate. Alara froze, trembling. Kale placed a hand on her back gently. Keep moving, he whispered. I won't let them find you. Her heart warmed again at his words. She kept crawling. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a small service chamber, filled with humming generators and stacks of tools. Kale breathed hard as they both stood up. We can rest for a moment, he said quietly. Alara leaned against a wall, holding her chest as she tried to steady her breath. Kale, why are you doing this? We barely know each other. Kale looked away, ashamed to admit the truth. You were kind to me, he finally whispered. On a ship full of fear. You were the only one who smiled at me without expecting anything. I couldn't let them take that away. Alara's eyes softened. She stepped closer, her voice gentle. Thank you. You saved me. Kale shook his head. Not yet. We still need to reach the hangar. A sudden danger before they could leave the small chamber. A metallic clang echoed above them. Kale's breath stopped. Someone was on the upper level. Then a voice came through the grate in the ceiling. Lieutenant Kale Wren. The officer said coldly, We know you're down there. Surrender now. Alara grabbed his arm, fear filling her eyes. Kale tightened his jaw. We're not surrendering. He scanned the room quickly, looking for a way out. His eyes stopped on a supply vent on the far side of the chamber. It was narrow, but just wide enough for two people. He grabbed Alara's hand. Come on, he whispered. We're not done fighting. Together. They ran toward the vent as footsteps crashed down from above. The chase was far from over. The Forbiddance rescue had only just begun. The upper deck of the Iron Vow trembled with tension. Every crew member felt the shift in the air. Something dangerous was rising like a storm gathering strength before it crashes down. At the center of the command deck, Captain Voss stood in front of the giant display screens. His face was calm, too calm, but his eyes burned with cold anger. He watched red warning symbols flash across the digital map of the ship. Locate them, he ordered. His voice was soft, but everyone in the room felt the threat inside it. Officers scrambled to obey, their hands shaking as they typed commands. Sir, one officer stuttered. We detected unauthorized access to the lower maintenance tunnels. It's likely Lieutenant Kale Wren and the prisoner. Voss raised a hand. Silencing him. Prisoner, Alara, the woman who dared to refuse him. The woman who made him look weak in front of the crew. And now Kale, that quiet pilot, dared to challenge him. Dared to interfere with his orders. Dared to make the whole ship question the captain's authority. Lock down every deck below level 3, Voss said slowly. Seal all escape routes. And send armed teams to the hangar, the bridge, and every vent system. Sir, that will trap half the crew. Do it, Voss snapped. The officers swallowed hard and obeyed. Voss leaned closer to the screen, whispering to himself, You think you can steal what belongs to me? You think you can run from my judgment? I will teach you both how wrong you are. His voice was quiet, but full of poison. Kale and Alara inside the vent tunnel. Meanwhile, far below, Kale and Alara crawled into the supply vent. It was cramped, dusty, and shaking from the heavy boots stomping above them. The metal walls vibrated with every sound. Alara whispered, Kale, the whole ship is searching for us. I know, Kale responded. That means we're making trouble for him. Good. She looked at him, surprised. This wasn't the shy pilot she knew from before. Something had changed in him. The calm rule follower was gone. His eyes now held fire. Purpose. Why do you sound almost happy? She asked softly. Kale smiled a little. Because it means the captain is scared. He knows he's losing control. Ilara's heart warmed at his courage. But she also felt the danger rising around them like thick smoke. The collapse suddenly, the vent shook violently. A loud explosion echoed somewhere nearby. Kale froze. They're sealing the tunnels. We need to move. He crawled faster, pulling Ilara behind him. The vent floor grew hot as welding beams cut through the metal from the outside. They're closing this whole section. Ilara gasped. We're not letting them trap us, Kale said firmly. He kicked open a side grate with all his strength. It flew off with a loud clang, and they climbed into another dark hallway, this one full of pipes and steam. But before they could catch their breath, a harsh voice filled every speaker around them. The captain's announcement. Attention crew, Captain Voss said, his voice echoing through every hallway. Lieutenant Kale Wren has betrayed this ship. He has attacked officers, broken military law, and interfered with a lawful execution. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. Kale stood speechless for a moment. Voss continued. He is armed. He is dangerous. Any crew member assisting him will share his punishment. Ilara whispered, he's lying. You didn't attack anyone unless they attacked us first. Kale clenched his teeth. He's trying to turn the crew against us. Voss wasn't finished. As for the prisoner, he said, his tone icy, she is to be captured alive. Anyone who harms her will answer to me personally. Ilara shivered. She didn't need to hear more. She knew exactly why Voss wanted her alive. Kale grabbed her shoulders gently. Don't listen to him. You're not his property. You're a person. She closed her eyes, swallowing back fear. I know, because of you. Kale's heart tightened. There was no going back now. They were both all in. Suspicion on the ship on many decks. Crew members paused, exchanging confused looks. Kale? A traitor? I've never seen him break a rule, one whispered. And why is the captain so angry about one woman rejecting him? Another asked quietly. Small seeds of doubt began to grow tiny but powerful. Voss could feel his grip slipping. Every second Kale stayed free was a threat to his control. Kale's plan. Kale checked the hallway ahead. We're close to the engineering hub. If we reach it, we can cut power to the hangar locks. Ilara nodded, trusting him completely now. Let's go. They moved through the steam-filled corridor, staying low, staying quiet. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every sound felt like a promise of danger. But Kale held her hand tightly, guiding her forward. We're getting out, he whispered. I promised I'd save you. Ilara squeezed his hand back. And I believe you. Behind them, the ship rumbled with the captain's wrath. Ahead of them lay danger, hope, and rebellion, and the Forbidden's rescue was far from over. The engineering corridor stretched ahead like a long metal throat, glowing with flickering red lights. The hum of machines was loud here, almost drowning out the footsteps of soldiers spreading across the lower decks. Kale and Ilara moved quickly, sticking close to the walls as they approached the entrance to the engineering hub. Kale knew this place well. As a pilot, he had trained here during emergency drills. The hub controlled almost everything: power flow, engine balance, and most importantly, hangar door systems. If he could unlock the hangar, they might escape in a shuttle before the captain caught them. But things were changing fast. Captain Voss was losing control of the ship. And when a tyrant feels his power slipping, he becomes even more dangerous. Ilara glanced behind them nervously. Do you think the crew believes his lies? Kale shook his head. Some do. Some don't. But fear is strong on this ship. People follow orders because they're scared of him. And you? She whispered. Kale stopped walking for a moment, turning to face her. His eyes were calm but burning with purpose. I was scared, too, he said. But then I saw what he was going to do to you. That fear disappeared. Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest, not romantic, not hopeful, but something deeper. Trust. True trust. Before she could answer, loud voices echoed from up ahead. Check every room. They're somewhere in this sector. Kale pulled her into a small side compartment, just before two security officers ran by with flashlights. Ilara held her breath, her heart pounding. Kale gently placed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. She nodded, staying close to him in the cramped space. The officer's footsteps faded down the hallway. Kale whispered, "We need allies. I can't do this alone." Ilara nodded. "Do you know someone who will help?" Kale thought for a moment. Yes, maybe. Inside the engineering hub they slipped out and moved quickly toward a large blast door marked Engineering Sector. Kale typed in a series of codes on the access panel. The heavy door slid open with a loud hiss dot inside. The engineering hub was hot and loud, filled with bright sparks, boiling pipes, and the smell of burning metal. Engineers in gray uniforms rushed around, trying to stabilize the engines after the earlier overrides. Then someone noticed them, a tall engineer with oil-stained hands. Cerise stared at Kale in shock. "Kale Ren?" He whispered. "What in the void are you doing here?" "The whole ship is hunting you." Kale stepped forward. "Cerise, please listen. I need your help. The captain is lying." Ilara did nothing wrong. Cerise raised a hand, stopping him. "You don't have to explain," he said quietly. "Most of us know what the captain really wanted from her. And we know what happens when someone embarrasses him." Ilara's breath caught. She had felt alone in her suffering, but hearing Cerise say it, it made her realize she wasn't invisible. People had noticed. They were just too afraid to speak. Cerise lowered his voice. "Some of us have been waiting for someone to stand up to him. I never thought it would be you, Kale, but I'm glad it is." Kale felt shock and relief mixed together. "So you'll help?" Cerise nodded. "Tell me what you need." A silent rebellion begins. Cerise led them to a small control station in the corner. These panels control the hangar access, but they're locked by level 3 authorization. The captain's own code. Kale clenched his jaw. That was a problem, but Cerise smirked. "Lucky for you, some engineers don't follow rules as much as we pretend to." He typed in a hidden command sequence. The panel flickered blue. Restricted. Access override. Engineering privilege. Grantale stared at him. "Cerise, if they find out you helped us." "They won't," Cerise said firmly. "And even if they do, it's worth it." Ilara stepped forward. "Why? Why risk everything?" "For us?" Cerise looked at her with kind but tired eyes. "Because someone has to say enough, and if you two get out, there's a chance the rest of us will find the courage to do the same." Ilara felt tears threaten her eyes, but she blinked them away. Kale placed a hand on Cerise's shoulder. "Thank you, truly." Cerise gave a sad smile. "Don't thank me yet. You still need to reach the hangar. And the captain's best fighters are guarding it." Kale nodded. "We'll find a way." Cerise activated a door on the far side of the room. "This maintenance route is unguarded. It'll take you close to the hangar, but be careful. If Voss thinks he's losing control, he'll do anything." The red lights flickered again. The ship groaned like a wounded beast. Kale took Ilara's hand. "Let's go." Ilara squeezed back, her fear now mixed with fierce determination. She wasn't running anymore. She was fighting. To live. Together, they stepped into the maintenance route, toward the hangar, toward danger, and toward a rebellion that was already beginning to spark across the ship. The storm was rising. And they were right in the center of it. The maintenance route was dark and narrow, lit only by dim blue strips along the floor. Kale and Ilara moved quickly, their footsteps echoing in the tight space. Every time the ship shook above them, Ilara flinched, not from fear of falling, but from the fear of being caught before freedom. "We're close," Kale whispered, checking the small map on the wall. "This tunnel leads directly to the hangar's lower level. From there, we can reach the flight deck." Ilara nodded, though her breath was shallow. "Kale, once we get there, what then?" Kale looked over his shoulder. "Then we fly." His confidence gave her strength. They turned a corner and froze. A deep rumble echoed through the metal walls, followed by a computerized voice. "Hangar bay lockdown in 20 seconds. Kale swore under his breath. "He's sealing the hangar." The captain was thinking ahead. He wanted them trapped. Ilara's eyes widened. "Kale, what do we do?" Kale grabbed her hand. "We run." And they did. They sprinted down the corridor as the countdown echoed above them. Lockdown in 15 seconds. The metal grated beneath their boots. Pipes hissed as steam escaped from pressure vents. 10 seconds. Ilara pushed herself harder, her lungs aching. Kale didn't let go of her hand for a second. They reached a ladder leading upward. "Climb," Kale ordered. Ilara went first, climbing as fast as she could. Kale climbed behind her, urging her upward. 5 seconds. They reached the upper platform, just as heavy blast doors began sliding shut on the hangar entrance. Kale sprinted and slid under the closing door. Ilara followed, barely squeezing through before the metal slammed shut with a deafening boom. They collapsed to the floor, gasping. But they made it. They were inside the hangar. Inside the hangar. No turning back. The hangar was massive. Rows of ships lined the deck. Engines quiet. Lights glowing in standby mode. Giant doors at the far end faced the empty stars. Emergency lights flashed red overhead. Kale pointed toward the smaller crafts. "We'll take a scout ship. They're fast and easy to start." Ilara followed as he ran to a small, sleek fighter shuttle. He slapped a startup panel. The cockpit door hissed open. "Hurry," Kale urged. Ilara climbed inside, settling into the co-pilot's seat. Kale jumped into the pilot chair and began flipping switches. The engine hummed awake. But before the ship could lift off, the hangar's main door shook violently and slowly began to open. Ilara frowned. "Kale, the hangar's not supposed to open during lockdown." Kale's heart sank. "It's not opening for us," he whispered. The captain's trap above the hangar, on a high balcony. Captain Voss watched from behind the glass window. "Send the interceptors," he ordered coldly. "Do not allow them to escape." Moments later, 6 sleek attack fighters roared out of storage, their engines screaming as they launched into the hangar air. Kale felt the floor tremble as they took off. "We're out of time," he said, gripping the controls. "Hold on." The scout ship lifted into the air, engines burning bright. Ilara's voice shook. "Kale, we're outnumbered." "I know," he said, his voice steady. "But I'm the best pilot on this ship. And they're not catching us." The hangar doors opened fully, revealing the vast emptiness of space, dark deep. Endless. Kale fired the engines at full power. The scout ship shot forward like a blazing comet. The chase begins the moment they cleared the hangar. The interceptors followed 6 deadly ships slicing through the void. Their bright engine trails glowed like blue lightning. Kale checked the flight screens. "They're fast, but we're faster." He pulled the controls hard to the right. The ship spun, dodging the first volley of laser fire. Ilara grabbed the edges of her seat. "Kale, don't worry," he said calmly. "I've trained for this." He made a sharp drop downward, slipping between 2 fighters. The stars blurred around them. The fighters responded with deadly precision, firing again. A blast struck the left wing. The ship jerked violently. Ilara gasped. "We're hit." "Minor damage," Kale said. "We can still fly." He switched to manual control, more dangerous, but faster. The interceptors formed a tight formation behind them. They fired again, lighting up the dark space with blue streaks of death. Kale dodged each shot by twisting the ship in ways most pilots couldn't even imagine. "Kale!" Alara shouted, pointing forward. Asteroid field. Kale grinned. Perfect. He dove straight into the floating maze of rocks that the interceptors hesitated for a second, but followed. Heart of the asteroids inside the field, giant rocks drifted silently across the darkness. One wrong move meant instant death. Kale maneuvered between them with impossible grace, weaving through tight gaps. Alara could barely breathe. "You're insane," she whispered. "Probably," Kale replied. "But it's working." One of the interceptors clipped an asteroid and exploded into fire. Another scraped a rock and spun away. "Engine dead." "2 down," Kale said. 4 to go. But the remaining fighters didn't give up. They formed a tight line and fired a coordinated blast. A laser beam shot past Kale's window, so close it left a bright trail across the glass. Alara's heart raced. "Kale, how long can we keep doing this?" Kale didn't answer. His eyes were locked ahead, seeing something in the distance. A small smile appeared on his lips. "Long enough," he said softly. "We're almost through." And for the first time, Alara believed they might survive. The chase through the stars was far from over. But Kale had a plan. And he wasn't giving up, not now. Not ever. Kale guided the scout ship through the thick asteroid field, weaving between massive spinning stones that could crush them in a heartbeat. Behind them, the 4 remaining interceptors struggled to follow. Their engines roared across the empty void, but Kale's flying stayed sharp, smooth, and fearless. Alara watched the scanners nervously. "Kale, they are still behind us." "I know," he said calmly. "But they're losing ground. How can you be so sure?" Kale smiled faintly. "Because they're afraid of dying, and right now, we're not." Alara blinked at him. Somehow, despite everything, the chase, the danger, the fear, he made her feel safe. The asteroid field began to thin out ahead of them. Stars filled the open space like a bright ocean. Kale straightened the ship. "We're clear." But the moment they exited the field, the interceptors fired again. Blue laser streaks raced across the darkness. Kale jerked the controls, dodging the blasts. "Alara!" he shouted. "Check the rear systems. Tell me if the thrusters overheat." She turned to the blinking lights behind her. "Temperature rising, but not critical yet." "Good. We just need a little more distance." The fighters closed in. Again, pushing their engines to maximum. The captain must have ordered them to catch Kale at any cost. Kale whispered, "He can chase us forever, but he won't win." Alara looked at his profile, focused, brave, steady. She understood something then. Kale wasn't just fighting to save her. He was fighting to save himself too, to stop living under a tyrant's shadow. The captain's final move on the iron. Captain Voss watched the chase on a giant screen. His jaw clenched as he saw Kale slipping away from the fighters. "Unacceptable," Voss growled. "Charge the long-range cannons. Prepare to fire on the fleeing ship." Officers stared at him, shocked. "Sir, the scout ship contains a human pilot and an unarmed prisoner. Firing could violate due IT." Voss roared, slamming his fist on the console. The officers reluctantly input the commands. Inside the launch tube, a massive energy cannon powered up, glowing with dangerous light. Kale's last maneuver back in the scout ship. Alara looked ahead and gasped. "Kale, something big is charging behind us." Kale checked the scanner. "The captain is preparing to fire the main cannon." Alara gripped the seat. "But that cannon isn't for small ships." Kale finished her sentence. "It's for destroying cruisers." They shared a terrified look. The cannon fired. A beam of white energy shot through space like a burning spear. Kale reacted instantly. He pulled the ship upward, turning sharply. The beam missed them by inches, lighting up the space beneath them with blinding light. The shockwave hit the interceptors behind them. 2 of them exploded instantly. A third spun out of control. Only one remained, and even that pilot hesitated, shocked by his own captain firing so wildly. Cale didn't waste the moment. He pushed the engines to maximum. "We're leaving system range," he said. "He won't hit us again." Elara looked back at the shrinking fighters. "We made it." Cale exhaled deeply. "Not yet, but we're close." Crossing the boundary, minutes passed. The ship flew farther and farther away from the Iron Vow, until the massive battleship was just a distant shape in the stars. Elara leaned back, tears forming in her eyes, not from sadness, but from pure relief. Cale finally slowed the ship and looked at her. "We're safe, for now." She looked at him, her voice soft. "You saved my life." Cale shook his head. "We saved each other." The words hung warmly between them, outside the window. A beautiful cluster of bright blue stars shimmered like scattered jewels. For the first time, the universe didn't look like a prison, it looked like freedom. A new future. Cale set the ship to autopilot, toward a nearby neutral system. "What now?" Elara asked softly. Cale took a deep breath. "We find a place to hide, then. Maybe we find others who want to stand against the captain." Elara nodded. Cerise said people were waiting for someone brave enough to fight back. Cale's expression hardened. "Then we won't run forever. One day, we return with all eyes." Elara smiled, a mix of hope and fire. "You want to start a rebellion?" Cale turned toward the stars. "Not a rebellion. A rescue for everyone still trapped on that ship." Elara reached out and took his hand. "We'll face it together." He squeezed her hand gently. "Together." The captain watches back on the Iron Vow. Captain Voss stared at the disappearing scout ship. His hatred burned like fire. "This isn't over," he whispered. "Wherever you run, Cale Wren, I will find you." But deep inside the ship, whispers spread through the crew. Cale escaped. The prisoner lived. The captain opened fire on his own fighters. Maybe it's time someone stood up to him. A spark of rebellion had begun. A new beginning. Cale and Elara drifted into the unknown, surrounded by endless stars. They were fugitives. They were hunted. They were alone, but for the first time in their lives, they were free, and freedom was only the beginning.